Are you out? Are you? Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Mary Beth, and I'm here today to share a list of books. Right now, with everything that's going on, I think people might have a little bit more time on their hands. If you have lots of little kids, that might not be the case. For me right now, it seems like life is busier than ever with everybody at home. However, I usually do find that if I have one good book on the go, I can read it while I'm feeding the baby. I like knowing that I have something that's really good that I'm reading that I can go to. So here's a list of books. They're all old enough that I've been able to find them on my public library app. I have the Libby app, which is the app that we use in Toronto to access the libraries. I don't know where you live, if you have an app for that or not. However, you could probably order them at your library when all this is over, if that is what you would like to do. So here is the list. I have 9 books. I used to have 10, and then I realized one of them was not the book I thought it was, and I got rid of that. And then I thought I need to find one to make it a perfect 10, and then I thought, why do I need to actually have 10? There's 9 books that I really love right now, and these are the books I'm going to share. I'm going to start with my least favorite, which is number 9, and then work up to number 1, which is my favorite book on this list. I will add that my favorite genre is by far historical fiction, so most of the books on this list fall into that category, and if that is not a genre that you particularly enjoy, then you might not find most of these books your style, but there are a couple that are not in that genre either, so you can listen and find which those are. Number 9 is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and the quote from Wikipedia says, Ready Player One is a 2011 science fiction novel. The story, set in a dystopia in 2045, follows protagonist Wade Watts on his search for an Easter egg in a worldwide virtual reality game, the discovery of which would lead him to inherit the game creator's fortune. So the reason this book is last on my list is mainly just because I usually don't really enjoy reading science fiction. The only reason I actually did listen to this one, I listened to the audiobook, was because Jeremy had listened to it and was listening to it again. I think we listened to it in the vehicle when we were driving a long ways somewhere. I actually found it very captivating. The story is really well written, and there's enough character drama and that it really drew me in, and I actually really enjoyed it. So if this is the type of book that you like listening to, this book I really recommend. Number 8 is Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. This book is a bit emotional. It's not what I would say an easy read. It is following 2 teenagers, and it sort of just deals with their home lives and how they deal with trauma. It really made me think of how often I am totally unaware of what's going on behind the scenes in someone's life and how unpredictable trauma can be and the way a person reacts to that. Number 7 is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Again, this book is not a super easy read. It tackles the issue of mental health. It's about a young woman who lives alone, and she deals with her past and is forced to come to terms with things that she had suppressed for most of her life. We feel very sympathetic towards the main character, and the book has some plot twists that I wasn't expecting. I found it to be quite unpredictable. Number 6 is If I Run by Terry Blackstock. This book is the first in a trilogy. It is about a girl running from a crime that she is being blamed for, so it has a little bit of romance in it, but it's also a lot more of a mystery book. So if that's more your thing, I recommend this book. Number 4 is A Fall of Marigolds by Susan Meissner. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Meister. It follows 2 storylines, one in 1911 and one in 2011, and they're both stories about 2 women who endure tragedy and then how they come to grips with that and how it affects their lives and the people that they are with. I listened to this as an audiobook mainly while doing dishes, and I just was very sad when it was finished because it was such a good book. Number 3 is Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce. I loved this book. It is, again, historical fiction. It is about a young woman who wants to be a war correspondent, so it's set in London during World War II. However, she ends up writing for this women's column that is really struggling, and not really many people are reading it, and it is so funny. This book, I actually laughed aloud, and I'm pretty sure I cried at parts for this book too, because the characters are just so realistic and they show such bravery and compassion at different times, and yet there's so much comedy in this book as well. I really love this book. So Dear Mrs. Bird. Number 2 is the only book that I actually have on my shelf. It is Heaven by Randy Alcorn. This is not a fiction novel and it doesn't really fit the theme of the rest of the books on this list, but I wanted to add it because I have been so encouraged and so blessed by this book. I believe in heaven, but I think I had a pretty inaccurate vision of what that would look like, which apparently is normal for most people who think about what heaven would look like according to the author. It really strengthened my faith, and I would say this was a life-changing book, and I don't like when people say life-changing about just anything because it's not accurate. However, this was actually life-changing, and I would say it has been monumental. Number 1 is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Barrows. This book is just such a good book. Out of all the books on this list, I think that if I found this book at a thrift store, I would keep it in my collection of books that I know that I will read over and over again, partly because I have already read it 3 times and I don't even own it. So you know that I really love this book. This book is a historical fiction set during World War II on the island of Guernsey during the German occupation. And the main character is an author, and she discovers this group of people on the island, and she ends up visiting and just finding out about how they dealt with the things that they had to endure on the island. And it is just so well written. It's actually written in a series of letters, which at first I thought I wouldn't really enjoy that as much, but I really did. There has been a movie made about this book. I watched the movie first. I didn't know that it was based on a book, and then when I realized there was a book, I figured I'd read the book because it's always better than the movie, and of course it really was. The movie is still really good, but I think that a couple of characters in the movie, they really just didn't portray like the book does, and that was kind of annoying. But this book is incredible. The movie is also really good, and it is number 1 on my list right now. It is just turning dark, and I'm out on our balcony with our lovely pigeon wire here that protects everything from getting pooped all over. If you didn't notice, I completely forgot book number 5 in my list that I filmed yesterday. It's been a tad hectic around here with everything going on, and it's been very hard to find quiet time to film. Anyways, all that to say, book number 5 was 5 Feet Apart by Rochelle Lippincott. Hope that's how you say her name. It's a book about 2 teenagers both dealing with cystic fibrosis. I thought it would be a very depressing story given the fact that they both have terminal illnesses, but actually it's a very sweet story, and it was just a very fun read. And that was book number 5 on the list. And also my camera died right when I was about to do the ending for this video, so there's also that.